Well, good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Sol Carbonell. I'm from the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. I'm the director of a new financial education unit that was created about 2 months ago. It is a really my pleasure being here today, and thank you for those that have invited me. It's great to have a combination of folks in the audience that are researchers and are practitioners to really think about the implications of how different organizations are going to be using this information. So let me just say my official disclaimer that the opinions that I will say today are my opinions and necessarily do not reflect those of the board or of the system. Because I come with the view of a practitioner, I will not give you any other additional data. I don't have a PowerPoint. I only have exactly 5 minutes for my remarks. And I think Anna has already alluded to a lot of things that I was planning on saying is really how do practitioners, whether they're at an employer, HR office, are really taking all of these considerations into the planning and design and the implementation of the programs. So because you already cover all of that with what your next steps are going to be, maybe I'll tell you a little bit more about what my evolution of thinking has been in the field of financial education, because my thoughts have evolved over the last 10 years that I've been involved in this field. I hear that's the way to say things in DC as far as evolution of thinking. So let me say that, as I said, because I come from a practitioner, I've approached this topic, I've been involved in different roles throughout this topic. A number of years ago, I worked for a national organization that trained the trainers and worked around the country with a network of 10,000 organizations that were implementing these kinds of programs. At the same time, I had served on the board of an organization, a smaller nonprofit, that was looking at workplace education as a revenue stream for a nonprofit organization and thinking about how to partner with the largest employers in the region to be able to facilitate these programs. So I've seen, now in my role at the Boston Fed and working at the regional level, I'm considering the implications for policy, the implications for the organizations that are working. And my unit specifically focuses on the adult population, and those are working in the community with that particular audience. So as I'm in the process of structuring this new unit, a lot of the questions that were raised in the papers discussed, not only just in this session, but throughout the day, really addressed, for me, what are some of the fundamental questions that I'm thinking at this point. And those are really practical questions that I'd like to pose. When organizations out there in the field have very limited resources to either structure programs or allocate funding, and it's still not clear to me what's really working, and if I'm trying to put funding on this particular program, or from a practical perspective, right now there's a United Way in our region, for example, that is trying to decide whether they should be partnering with the largest employer, whether they should be funding a financial education center, doing a bank-owned campaign, or do a match for the children that live within a particular district. So I'm taking much more of a larger perspective and thinking about the organizations that are putting money toward all of these practices and thinking about what's the real impact on the individuals and what's a better use of the resources. What we're hearing from our region, from the private sector and the public sector, is truly the lack of resources that organizations will continue to have. And some troubling trends that were both showcased in the papers today is the fact that minorities, that women, low-income population are accessing these products and services at different rates, different participation and contribution rates. We've seen that in some of the studies there are clear implications for what has happened in the last few years and how those populations are accessing these products now that would allow them to build assets in the years to come. So that's really a troublesome trend that's particularly important to me. At the same time, I think the question about self-control, individual self-control, and what are the products out there that we have that would allow us to fulfill our goals and sort of manage the issue with self-control. It's interesting that in your paper you pointed that not a lot of those products currently exist, And then, because I have a personal interest in payday lending, and I'm surprised that this issue hasn't been raised today, you know, I'm trying to think about the correlations of what you said and that problem of self-control and the fact that folks actually preferred opportunities that actually limit their ability to access those funds quickly. How does that relate to this, you know, other set of products that we have out there? So the role of, you know, when we talked earlier today about the either or, you know, it's not mandating, or it's, you know, you're also are required to have, or you should have, additional financial education in the workplace and out there in the community to complement what policy and regulation needs to have. I think that's where some of the things that I'm considering. So the last question that I want to put out there is for all of you that are researchers. I'd like to encourage you to look at how you distill this information to the practitioners. There's an enormous amount of financial education that is happening out there on the ground that is not informed by research, that is not fact-based, that is not data-driven. So what I'm here today is really ask you, to me, the ultimate question: so what? You know, what happens with the papers that you're putting out there? What happens with the information? And how do you ensure that it really gets to the hands of the right people? So I want to commend the Financial Education Center here for actually putting these events together, but also creating the insights. Because I think that those would be a valuable tool for those of us that get bombarded with information about what works, what doesn't work. You know, there are a number of different versions for every topic. And what I'd like to see is for everybody here to truly play a role in thinking about the work that is happening on the ground and the impact that we can have in the individual consumers, and how this information trickles down to the organizations and the policymakers, not only at the federal level, but also at the local level, that I think could have enormous contributions.